I have not heard from any boards, which is probably a good sign. Our Director of Elections is here. You hearing anything, David?
Mostly very positive things. There's been a couple boards that have had last-minute questions, just, what's the most recent word in terms of court ruling. But overall, I would say it's going very smoothly, and the boards were obviously well prepared to get the absentee season kicked off.
Can we move into that area a little bit, or not? Are you comfortable?
I'm fine.
Well, one of the things he said was, I heard Morgan County didn't have any absentee ballots available. Is that unclear? Is that typical, or does that happen in other places?
I'm not certain about Morgan County. Many of the counties have what's called ballot on demand. So they will order some ballots from their printer, but they also have a database of their ballots with the correct ballot layout, and they'll print out a ballot from that database as a voter appears and requests that ballot. There may be several counties who don't have their large supply of ballots back from the printer, and even if they had everything, most of them are not mailing every single one out on the first day. They mail them out kind of in phases, because if you have, for instance, 130 or 150,000 absentee ballot requests, it's pretty tough to process all on the first day. But my understanding is all the counties have ballots available to a voter if they do appear at the Board of Elections office or the satellite location to vote.
I'm told Morgan didn't have this one, but
Anything?
Morgan specifically.
We'll check on Morgan specifically.
The other thing is, most boards have what's called a ballot on demand.
That's what I was
feature.
thinking. Yeah. Morgan County is one of those counties where funding is a real issue for that county in terms of being able to have even 2 full-time employees in the director and deputy director. It's my understanding one works 3 days a week and the other works 3 days a week, and the only day they overlap is Wednesday. Hopefully in election time they have extra help. But if you go to a little county like Madison County, the director and the deputy director actually deliver all the machines to the polling places for election day. They have 16 polling places in Madison County, and I was out there last week. Funny they didn't mention anything about the 5-day window when I was there, but I was out there last week, and they literally, these 2 men deliver all the machines.
Secretary Brunner, the state GOP is asking a federal judge to at least force you to segregate those ballots that are voted during the window and make sure that that information can be verified before those votes are counted, and talking about voter fraud and that sort of thing. What is your response to that? Because I know you put out a directive that kind of dealt somewhat with that issue.
We did. We issued a directive that said ballots that are voted by voters who both register and vote absentee on the same day during this overlap period for absentee and voter registration, that they're required to vote on a paper ballot. And the purpose of that was to give the Board of Elections the resources that they needed to be able to verify eligibility while protecting the secrecy of the ballot voted by that person. What people have difficulty understanding is that the beauty of that overlap period is that there's no need for a provisional ballot, because you have the voter, you have the voter registration, you have the address, you have ID, and if there are any questions, they can be answered right there. The only issue is ensuring that the voter database is checked, and that if they're registered in some other county, that other county is notified. But there's a reason why there isn't provisional absentee voting until 28 days before the election, because at this point in time, in trying to verify your voter list, you've got the person right there in front of you if you've got a question.
Now you're appealing the decision to the court decision yesterday that allows observers in polling locations during the absentee balloting period. I'm wondering, today are observers allowed in the polling areas?
Yes. Philosophically, I don't have a problem with observers being there. The only problem is the legislature didn't provide for it. And as much as they might like for me to make up rules for that to happen, chances are if I tried to, they probably wouldn't like what I made up. The best that I could do, being in the position that I'm in, with a federal judge ruling solely on state law, which is irregular, is to take the observer directive that we used in the primary election, apply it to this situation along with the statute for observers at polling places and at boards of elections during the processing of absentee ballots, and extrapolate as best I can so that we have some coherent, consistent set of guidelines and procedures for boards to use. Because the last thing that I would want to see is confusion, any sense of intimidation of voters. And when you go to some of these smaller boards of elections, when you look at how much space is actually there in the office for not only people to vote, but for there to be observers, one for each presidential campaign, and on our ballot we have quite a few different presidential candidates, and then the political parties, and it could get quite crowded, actually.